Hi everyone. Today we learn about Hamlet, a play written by William Shakespeare. Before we begin, please like our channel, subscribe to our channel for more updates on literary acts, plays, poems, sonnets, verses, stories, etc. Let's start. About the author, William Shakespeare was born in Warwickshire, England. He baptized on 26th April 1564. He died at the age of 52 and he belongs to Elizabethan and Jacobean era. His famous writings are Hamlet, King Lear, Othello, Romeo and Juliet, and many sonnets he had written, and also verses, stories too. His wife's name is Anne Hathaway. Let's get into the story. The play's characters are: the ghost in the play is the ghost of Hamlet's father, the late King Hamlet, who died very recently. And Hamlet, he is the son of the late king, and he is the present nephew of the present king Claudius. Horatio, he is the best friend of Hamlet. Claudius is the present king of Denmark and Hamlet's uncle. And Claudius is the brother of the late king. Gertrude, she is the queen and Hamlet's mother. Polonius, he is the chief counselor to the king and also to the court. Ophelia is Polonius' daughter and Laertes is Polonius' son. Voltimand and Cornelius are courtiers who were sent to the Norway to persuade the king to prevent Fortinbras, the Prince of Norway, from attacking Denmark. Merciless and Bernardo are two courtiers who sees the ghost first. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, these are the two courtiers. They are also childhood friends of Hamlet. And here comes Fortinbras, the Prince of Norway. Let's get into the summaries of all the acts. In Act 1, we can see Prince Hamlet sitting there in the court, very sad, mourning at the death of his father who died very recently. And on the other hand, we can see Bernardo and Merciless. These are the two courtiers who were guarding the court, and they were discussing about a ghost they saw, which resembles like the late king. And they went forward. They wanted to inform this to someone, so they went forward and they informed the same to Horatio, the prince's best friend. Horatio thinks that he doesn't believe it the first, so he wanted to check it out for himself. So coming back to the court, we can see that they were talking about the affairs, and the king and the queen, they were talking about the affairs, and we can see Polonius coming forward and asking permission for Laertes, his son, to go back to France. So king tells and gives permission. King tells okay, and then we can see Horatio going to the court, and where Bernardo and Merciless saw the ghost, and he saw that ghost too, and he confirmed that there is a ghost that resembles the late king. So as the court goes by, inside the court we can see the prince is still sad, sitting there, and Polonius gets permission from king for his son, and king is observing Prince Hamlet since the start, and he is still sitting there sad. So king scolds prince, saying that he should also go back to England to continue whatever he is doing instead of sitting here and mourning at the death of his father. In Act 2, so here what happens is, in Act 1, Horatio, Bernardus and Merciless, these three people come to Prince after the court disperse and tells what happens. And Prince also doesn't believe it, and he wants to check it out for himself too. So three of them along with Prince go to the court's building where the other three people saw the ghost, and he can see the ghost too. So suddenly what happens, the ghost appears to Prince Hamlet, and it tells that he was killed by the present King Claudius, and he was deceived and was killed, and he wanted revenge for his death, for his murder. So four of them stood there thinking what should be done to get the truth out of the present King Claudius, and what should be done to take revenge. So here comes the next act, where we can see Ophelia suddenly comes to Polonius. First, Ophelia told Polonius and Laertes that the prince he himself came forward and expressed his love towards Ophelia. And now Ophelia is starting to have some feelings towards the prince too, which was denied and confronted by Laertes and Polonius, saying that those thoughts should be stopped and she should not go any more forward towards Prince Hamlet. And in this act, we can see suddenly Ophelia comes running to Polonius, saying that Prince Hamlet came to her in a very mad attire and he was very angry. He's acting very weird and he's shouting and acting very weird, clearly like a mad person. So now Polonius gets very angry because he is thinking that the prince has got many levels to control himself, but now he is crossing the limits. So Polonius thought that it would be better for him to spy on Prince Hamlet, to go right behind him and spy on him so that he would confront any further actions towards Ophelia. So not only Polonius, all the people from the court and all the people from Denmark has been talking about this, that the prince has become mad, so sad that he has been sad since 2 months and he has become mad because. So here Polonius tries to keep an eye on the Prince Hamlet, thinking that he is just acting. And now we can see even the king and queen were very worried about him. And the queen decides to bring his childhood friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They are the childhood friends of Prince Hamlet, and also they are the courtiers of the court. So the queen decides to bring them so that with their help, the prince will gain consciousness and come back to normal. On the other hand, we can see Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they were actually employed by King Claudius to keep an eye on Prince Hamlet and tell everything what he is doing to the king. So here we can see Queen is worried about her son, and the king has employed 2 spies on the prince. And then when they come, we can see that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they enter the court with a bunch of people, and as soon as Prince Hamlet sees his friends, he is very happy and he welcomes them very warmly. And as soon as they come inside, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern tell that on their way they met some troupe of actors and they wanted to show those actors to the king. So once this happens, with the acts of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, according to their acting, the prince understood that the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they both are spies and they have been employed by his stepfather, the present King Claudius. So in a satirical way, of course, he welcomed the troupe of actors, but still in a satirical way, he wants to check if they are really actors or are they just acting to get the attention of the king. So in a satirical way, the prince asks those troupe of actors to deliver a soliloquy of the death of the King Priam and Queen Hecuba from Trojan War climax. So that troupe of actors will deliver that particular soliloquy from Trojan War in a very impressive way that the prince gets very impressed with them. And at the end of this play, the prince announces that he will write down a play and will be directing it, and these troupe of actors will be producing and will be played in that act. So that act or play's name is The Murder of Gonzago. So according to Prince, this play might help to get the truth out of everyone regarding the murder of his father, the late King Hamlet. So in Act 3, we can see Polonius forces Ophelia to give back those love letters and gifts given by Prince Hamlet to him. So even though Ophelia is very sad at his decision, her father's decision of giving back those letters, she goes forward, she obliges to her father and goes forward and gives him the prince all those gifts and love letters. The whole scene can be captured by King Claudius and Polonius, who is standing very far and observing what will happen in this particular scene. So as soon as Ophelia gives back those love letters and gives tokens of affection back to Prince Hamlet gets very disappointed in her action. Prince Hamlet tells that he has been very attached to Ophelia. Actually, Prince Hamlet has this thing in his mind that all the women are same because his mother married the present King Claudius as soon as King Hamlet left. So it is just 2 months gap, and Gertrude, Prince Hamlet's mother, married King Claudius. So he felt very sad and he felt that all women are same, and he thought that Ophelia is different from all the women. So she is very different, she is very unique. That is what pulled Prince Hamlet towards her. But then this act of returning his love letters and rejecting his love seems to be very hurtful to Prince Hamlet, and Prince Hamlet shouts at her and accuses her of immodesty, and he cries out loudly saying that asking her to go to the nunnery and become a nun, and no one will be coming back to her. So shortly thereafter, as soon as this incident happened, we can see people gathering in the court to have a glimpse of what is going on, and everyone gathers for the play to be run, which is directed by Prince Hamlet. So in that play, we can see the player king murdered by his rival, pouring poison in his ears. This is the same way the late King Hamlet has been murdered, and Claudius sees this scene and he suddenly rises up from his throne. He will be very worried and he suddenly rushes into his room. Everyone felt it weird though, and as soon as King Claudius gets up and rushes to his room, the Prince Hamlet will be very fine with it and confirmed that the prince has cleared the mystery of his father's murder, that King Claudius, the present king of Denmark, has murdered the late King Hamlet by pouring poison in his ears. Meanwhile, as I said, everyone is disturbed. Even Gertrude felt it very uneven, and Gertrude wanted Prince Hamlet to explain himself on how and why this play has been written. So Gertrude asked Prince Hamlet to come to her bedchamber and explain himself about this play. While Prince gets up and starts walking towards Gertrude's bedchamber, he sees Prince Claudius alone in his room. So he bags a sword and tells that this will be a correct chance for King Claudius to be murdered by Prince Hamlet. So Prince Hamlet goes into the room of King Claudius and he sees him praying. So King Claudius shouldn't be murdered because he is praying, because according to Prince Hamlet, any person who will be killed during they pray, they will be going to heaven. They end up going to heaven, and he doesn't want King Claudius to go to heaven because his father is a ghost now, and he is stuck in purgatory. So he leaves that idea of killing King Claudius there, and he rushes towards Gertrude's bedchamber. This all, as I told in the start, Polonius observes everything, and Polonius is behind Prince Hamlet and wants to make sure that Prince is not going anything forward towards Ophelia. So Polonius, as a spy, stands behind a curtain in Gertrude's bedchamber, the queen's bedchamber, and is very aware that the prince will be coming there. So as soon as the prince comes there, a very bitter fight will begin between Gertrude and the Prince Hamlet. Hamlet wants to kill her also. Hamlet wants to kill her, and he shouts at her, he insults her, saying that all women are the same, and he was very upset about Gertrude's decision of marrying King Claudius and her actions, and which is very disappointing to everyone, not only him, but to everyone in the court. So what happens is, as the fight goes by, Polonius, who is standing behind the curtain, thinks that according to the rage of Prince Hamlet, he might end up killing Gertrude. So Polonius involuntarily shouts for help. So as soon as Polonius' shout has been heard by Hamlet, Hamlet thinks that it is King Claudius who is behind the curtain, and he stabs through the curtain. Tapestry in here is the curtain. So Prince Hamlet stabs through the tapestry, and Polonius will be killed. Listening to this, King Claudius arrives in the queen's bedchamber, and he sees what is going on. He understands that Prince Hamlet knows everything, and at any point of time he might get killed by Prince Hamlet. So in a favorable way, and Prince Hamlet will be asked by King Claudius to go away to England to save himself from this sin. As this is going on, before King Claudius arrives to the Gertrude's chamber, the ghost of the late King Hamlet appears, and he shouts at the Prince Hamlet, saying what it is taking so long for him to get revenge on his father's murder. And the late king's ghost, also shouts at him about how he is treating his mother also. Listening to all this, Gertrude couldn't see the ghost. Hamlet only sees the ghost, and Gertrude comes to this conclusion that his son is really mad and he is not acting. So as this is going on, King Claudius comes, asks Prince Hamlet to go back to London just to get away with the sin. And we can see Prince Hamlet shouting at Gertrude still, and he also asks Gertrude not to sleep with King Claudius, and King Claudius is very evil, and he is very disappointed in her actions because it's just 2 months your husband died and you married another person, is what making Prince Hamlet feel more disappointed and more disgusting. As his words are becoming more harsh, Gertrude also feels so disgusting, and she herself insults herself. So in this scene we can see King Claudius asking Hamlet to go away, and Hamlet leaves by dragging Polonius' corpse. Learning that her father died, Ophelia goes mad. Ophelia goes really mad, and Laertes, who is in France presently, he starts back to Denmark after learning that his father died and his sister is now mad. Hamlet also jokes with Claudius that where he had hidden Polonius' body, and the king is fearing for his life. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, you remember these two from childhood of Hamlet's childhood friends. These two and Hamlet were sent to England, and King Claudius gives a sealed letter which should be given to England's king after they reach England. So we can see that in the boat they will be attacked by pirates. So pirates will be attacking them, and Prince Hamlet, in order to save himself from those thieves, he will run back to Denmark, which no one knows. And when we will be seeing that further, how he came back. So Laertes, who comes back in a revenge, he is very angry that Hamlet should be killed. Hamlet should be killed because he is the reason his father Polonius died, and he is the reason his sister Ophelia is now mad. So Claudius confronts him, saying that this is not the way you need to kill Hamlet, because Hamlet is solely responsible for Polonius' murder and Ophelia's madness. Hamlet should be killed in this way. This is the way that they should set up a fight, and he needs to be killed with a sword which is filled with poison. So while this plan is going on, Gertrude interrupts them, saying that Ophelia fell down to her death. She has been drowned, and no one is aware whether it is a murder or a suicide. So according to Gertrude, it is unclear, and Ophelia has drowned to death. In Act 5, we can see that Horatio will be getting a letter. Horatio, he is the best friend of Prince Hamlet. He'll be getting a letter that Hamlet has returned to Denmark, and he wants to meet Horatio. So suddenly Horatio goes out, and far away he meets Hamlet near a graveyard place. So Hamlet tells that they have been attacked, and he tried to save himself, and they came back he came back to England. And he also tells that he has opened that sealed letter which has to be given to England's king. That letter has that the prince should be killed along with his friends, the childhood friends and spies, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. They should be killed along with the prince as soon as they reach England. So he read that letter, and he felt deceived, and he wrote a letter in exchange saying that those two friends should be killed. They should be captized. They should be killed, and his letter is being sent with their friends to England's king. While this discussion is going on, they both see that a group of people are coming towards them. Before that, they see two grave diggers are digging a grave, and they didn't know whose grave it is. So they go forward and ask them who has died. So grave diggers say that someone has died, and they are digging the grave, and that grave ends up to be Yorick. Yorick is a childhood. He died when Prince Hamlet was very young, and he is a jester in the court. Jester is a person who gives entertainment. He is like a joker, and he used to perform in joker acts for living. So that his name is Yorick, and his skull will be taken out. The grave diggers take his skull out while digging the grave, and for a few moments we can see Prince Hamlet talking to Yorick's skull and saying that Yorick, he has been a great person, and also suddenly he turns Yorick's skull into Ophelia's face in his mind, and tells that how much he loved Ophelia, and he came back to her. So as the group of members try to come near them, they both hide themselves from them. And after they hide, they see Laertes Claudius, Gertrude, and other people from the court coming to bury Ophelia. This makes Prince very sad, and he ends up coming out and tells that I should be getting buried along with Ophelia because I am the person who loved her most and she is the person who loved him most, and they have been the ultimate lovers and they need to be buried together. At his sight, Laertes gets very angry. They start fighting by the side of Ophelia's grave. And where the grave is, just beside that grave, Laertes and Prince Hamlet start to fight. And that fight will be stopped by Claudius saying that this is not the correct time or this is not the correct place to do that. So they dispersed. So as the plan is going on between Horatio and Hamlet, they will be interrupted by one of the courtiers, the courtier from Denmark only. His name is Osric. He interrupts Hamlet and Horatio and gives them a letter. That letter contains a fencing challenge to Hamlet. So Horatio tells not to accept, but still Hamlet accepts it. So he is unaware of the plan which Claudius and Laertes has planned out to kill Hamlet. Neither does Gertrude nor Horatio. None of the people other than Claudius and Laertes know about the plan, where the sword will be covered with poison, and that sword Laertes should carry and he should stab Prince Hamlet. So as soon as the match begins, on the safer side, what King Claudius thinks is, if in case Prince Hamlet wins the fight, he should not be alive. So in order for him to kill Prince Hamlet, if in case Prince Hamlet wins, the winning should be celebrated and Claudius will be handing over a glass of wine to Prince Hamlet to drink, and that glass of wine is also been poisoned, because in either ways the Prince Hamlet should be dead at the end of the fight, is what the plan is according to King Claudius and Laertes. So as the match begin and they start fighting, we can see Laertes holding a sword which is filled with poison, and for the first two rounds goes very well, and Laertes would not be able to stab Prince Hamlet. So Prince Hamlet wins. In happiness, Gertrude thinks that it is a time for celebration, and she, not knowing that that's a glass of poison, she drinks that glass of wine which is also poisoned. In this act, we can see Gertrude is very happy that her son is winning, and she drinks. As soon as she drinks, she will be feeling dizzy and she'll shout out loud saying that she has been poisoned, and she collapsed there. Seeing to this, we can see Prince Hamlet's expression that something is going on in here. In this while, we see Laertes stabbing Prince Hamlet with the poison-filled sword. So, in these dying moments, Laertes also understands that this is all King Claudius who did this. So, Prince Hamlet has been stabbed, and in a fit of rage, we can see the swords getting switched unknowingly, and the same poison-filled sword is used by Prince Hamlet to kill Laertes. So Laertes and Prince Hamlet, they both are poisoned now, and Laertes will be understanding the King Claudius' plan in killing everyone, and he conveys the same thing while dying Prince Hamlet. So Prince Hamlet, he thinks that he has a little more time, and he should be killing King Claudius in a revenge for his father's death. And he goes forward and stabs King Claudius with the same poison-filled sword. And in this way, all the lives in that particular fencing match are done. Gertrude dies of poisoned wine. Laertes, Prince Hamlet, and King Claudius, they were all dead because of poisoned sword. So, in this play, all the deaths have been with the sword. Most of the deaths have been with the sword and also the poison. Looking at all this, Horatio gets very disappointed. Horatio gets depressed and he thinks of killing himself, committing a suicide with the same sword, where Hamlet stops him. Prince Hamlet tells that Horatio should be living and conveying Prince Hamlet's victory to anyone and everyone who will be consulting Horatio regarding Prince Hamlet. According to Prince Hamlet, this is his victory that he had his revenge. So, as soon as this is happened, we can see Fortinbras, the Prince of Norway, coming towards the court. And he has raised a war and he is coming with his troop towards the court. And as soon as he enters the court, he sees everyone lying dead in the court. The only person who is alive is Horatio, and Horatio tells everything to Prince Fortinbras, who has taken over the throne of Denmark also now. So Fortinbras also thinks that this is a great way of dying, and he declares Hamlet to be a legend. And even though Fortinbras has taken over Denmark and also the Denmark court, his last rites, Prince Hamlet's last rites, have been given in a very great and military funeral has been done to honor. Let's get into the themes of the play. Madness, the first theme. One of the central questions of Hamlet is whether the main character, the Prince Hamlet, has lost his mind or is only pretending to be mad. On the other hand, his behavior seems logical response to the mad situations he finds himself in, like his father's murder and his stepfather, the present king, taking over the throne. And initially, Hamlet himself seems to believe he is sane, he is fine, and he describes his plan to put an antic disposition on. This statement can be seen in Act 1, where he tells that to put an antic disposition on just to get the truth out of everyone about his father's murder. And he also, in other act, we can see him telling Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who are his childhood friends, that he only gets mad when the wind blows north to west. In other words, his madness is something he can turn on and off at his will. By the end of the play, Hamlet seems to doubt his own sanity because he found himself using harsh words, and when he is not himself, does harm Laertes. And who does it then? His madness. Who does it then? His madness. That is what is going on. And referring to his murder of Polonius, he says, who does it then? It's madness. It's his madness who killed Polonius, is what he tells himself to get over the murder of Polonius. And at the same time, Hamlet's excuse of madness absolves him of murder. So it can be read as working of a sane and cunning mind. The next theme is complex action. We can see complexity of actions directly related to the theme of certainty is a theme of action. How is it possible to take reasonable, effective, and purposeful action? We can see it in Hamlet. The question of how to act is affected not only by rational considerations such as the need of certainty, but also by emotional, ethical, and psychological factors. The action doesn't mean that it should be of it should only need certainty, but it should be of emotional, ethical, and psychological factors which help in acting or action. Hamlet himself appears to destruct the idea that it's even possible to act in and controlled, purposeful way. When he does act, he prefers to be doing it blindly, recklessly, and violently when he thinks to act. The other characters obviously think that it is much less about action in the abstract than Hamlet does. What Hamlet thinks here is his action should be in a controlled and purposeful way. When the other characters think that we should not give much importance to action, just the opposite way, like Hamlet does. But in some sense, they prove that Hamlet is right because all of their actions miscarry. Claudius possesses himself of queen and crown through bold action, but his conscience torments him, and he is beset by threats to his authority. Laertes resolves that nothing will distract him from acting out his revenge, but he is easily influenced and manipulated. We can see this manipulation in the plan Claudius makes to kill Prince Hamlet. The next theme is mystery of death. The mystery of death. Mystery of death is the theme which is going around the play. And in the aftermath of his father's murder, Hamlet is obsessed with the idea of death. He is very obsessed with the idea. He ponders both spiritual aftermath and physical aftermath of death. Spiritual aftermath. The physical aftermath is, we can see when the physical remainders of the dead, like Yorick's skull, and the decaying corpse in the cemetery. We can take it as a pillar. Throughout, the idea of death is closely tied to the themes of spirituality, truth, and uncertainty. In that, death may be bringing the answers to Hamlet's deepest questions, ending once and for all the problems of trying to determine truth in an ambiguous way. And since the death is both the cause and the consequence of revenge, it is intimately tied to the theme of revenge and justice. Claudius King, the murderer of the late king, and the Hamlet's quest of the revenge, the Claudius' death in the end, is the quest. The question of his own death plagues Hamlet as well. He repeatedly contemplates whether or not to commit suicide. Let's just get out of all this and just commit suicide, or whether to take revenge. Or he repeatedly contemplates on what he has to do. Hamlet's grief and misery is such a way that he frequently longs for death to end his suffering. He doesn't want anything. He just wanted to end his life. So here comes the death, the option called death. Hamlet's philosophically concludes that no one would choose to endure pain of life if he or she is very worried about what will come after the death. And that is this fear which causes complex moral considerations to interfere with the capacity of actions. Next, we can see themes. In next theme, we can see nation as a diseased body. The whole play can be taken, the whole Hamlet, which is written by Shakespeare, can be taken as a nation. The Denmark is a nation, and that has been dead and which is getting decomposed, deceased. The play's early scene explore the sense of anxiety and dread surrounds the transfer of power from one ruler to the next, because it's just 2 months that the old king died, and in a very fast pace a new king came by. So this is the transfer of power from one ruler to the next. Throughout the play, characters draw explicit connections between moral legitimacy of a ruler and the health of nation. Denmark is frequently described as a physical body made ill by a moral corruption of Claudius and Gertrude. As I told in the Acts, we can see that uh, when Hamlet, the prince, is mad at Gertrude, when he's shouting, he told Gertrude that he and all the other people in the nation is very disappointed by her actions. So we can see that a deceased body, the Denmark as a deceased body, is very ill. That has become very ill because of corruptions of Claudius and Gertrude. Many observers interpret the presence of ghost as a supernatural omen, indicating that something is rotten in the state of Denmark. The dead king Hamlet, portrayed as strong, forthright ruler, under whose guard the state was in a very good health, while Claudius, a wicked politician, has corrupted and compromised Denmark to satisfy his own appetites, is what the nation is looking like. And at the end of the play, when the Fortinbras came and took over Denmark, the Denmark at the end of the play, as we can see Prince Fortinbras rise to power, there is a quote saying Denmark will be strengthened once again. So like this, the mystery of death and nation as a deceased body, they are kind of interconnected to each other. And next theme is performance. Hamlet includes many references to performance. So both theatrical performance and the way people perform in daily life, and the first appearances, Hamlet draws a distinction between outward behavior and real feelings. However, the more time we spend with Hamlet, the harder it becomes to tell what he is really feeling and what he is performing. He announces in Act 1 that he is going to pretend to be mad. In Act 2, Ophelia describes Hamlet to be in a mad behavior. And when Hamlet tells Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that he'll just get mad when the wind blows from one direction to another. And by the end of the play, even Hamlet himself doesn't seem to know the difference between performance and reality. So he himself is confused now, and Hamlet further explores the idea of performance by regularly reminding the audience that we are watching a play. When Polonius says that at university he did enact Julius Caesar, contemporary audience will have thought of Shakespeare's own Julius Caesar, which was written around the same time as Hamlet. The actor who played Polonius may have played Julius Caesar as well. The device of play within the play gives Hamlet further opportunities to comment on the nature of the theater. And the purpose, and we can see a doubt theme also. So before going to that, we'll see the purpose of playing is to hold as to where the mirror of up to nature. The purpose of performance is to hold to get the outcome in a perfect and truthful way. And here comes doubt. Where do we see doubt in here? The main character doubts creates the world where very little is known for sure. Hamlet thinks, but it isn't entirely sure that his uncle killed his father. He believes he sees his father's ghost, but he is not sure, and that's why he plans and he himself transforms to be a mad guy to get the truth. So we can also see Hamlet suspects that he should probably just kill himself. He doesn't want any more pain. He doesn't want any more confusion. He doesn't want a pain about because of his father's death, because Ophelia rejected him. He just wants to end his life because his doubts, which are running around in his mind, are making him feel so. He even works to infect other characters with his lack of certainty. He tells Ophelia that she shouldn't have believed him, because in the start of the play, in before the play starts only, Ophelia and Hamlet can be seen in love, but now that he is very sad and very mad, with confusion and doubtful performance, and with doubtful insight, he clearly tells Ophelia that she shouldn't have believed him when he told her that he loved her. And the audience doubt Hamlet's reliability as a protagonist, because in some cases even Hamlet is not sure whether he is performing or uh, he is fine. So even uh, the people who are playing in the not only the people who are in the play, but also we can see the audience are doubtful on Hamlet's character, on Hamlet's reliability as a protagonist. In some cases, Hamlet cannot be seen as a protagonist at all. We are left with many doubts about action, whether Gertrude was having an affair with Claudius before he killed Hamlet's father, or whether Hamlet is sane or mad, on whether Hamlet's true feelings are for Ophelia, or is he not having any feelings at all. So this is how the themes go: madness, complex actions, mystery of death, nation as a deceased body, performance, doubt. When we see motives, we can see desires of people in the play, and misogyny, and ears and hearing. In desires, we can see the life of Gertrude and Claudius, who are supposed to live as brother-in-law and sister-in-law in the play, but now they are married. Gertrude should be as a sister-in-law, but they are married and they are now husband and wife. And also in the life of Laertes and Ophelia, Laertes being a brother, we could observe that sometimes Laertes seems to be speaking to Ophelia in a weird way. In Hamlet's fixation on Gertrude's life with Claudius and his preoccupation with her in general. And when it comes to misogyny, we can totally see a dependence of this motive on the life of Gertrude. Shattered by his mother's decision to marry Claudius so soon after husband's death, the Prince Hamlet, has become very cynical about women in general, showing a particular obsession with what we perceive to be a connection between their desires and moral corruption. This motive of misogyny or hatred of women occurs sporadically throughout the play, but it is an important inhibiting factor in Hamlet's relationship with Ophelia and Gertrude, because after Gertrude's action, we can see even Hamlet in general thinks that all women are the same, and he hates all the women. When Ophelia tells that she is rejecting Hamlet and she returns all his gifts, Hamlet shouts Ophelia and urges her to go to a nunnery rather than experiencing the corruption, and exclaims of Gertrude and her actions. And when it comes to ears and hearing, one facet of Hamlet's exploration of difficulty of attaining true knowledge is the slipperiness of language. Words are used to communicate ideas, but they can also be used to distort the truth, manipulate other people, and serve as a tool in corrupt quest of power. Claudius, the shrewd politician, is the most obvious example of a man who manipulates words to enhance his power. These sinister uses of words are represented by images of ears and hearing, from Claudius' murder of King by pouring poison into his ears, and Hamlet's claim to Horatio that "I have worked to speak in thine ear will make thee dumb." The poison poured in King's ear by Claudius is used by the ghost to symbolize the corrosive effect of Claudius' dishonesty on health of Denmark. Just the same goes with the nation as a deceased body. Declaring that story that he was killed by a snake is a lie. He says that the whole ear of Denmark has been rankly abused. This is with the ears and hearing. When we can go to the only single main important symbol of the play Hamlet, Yorick's skull. Yorick, as I said before, he is a jester. He's a former jester. He died when Prince Hamlet was very small, and he urges in Hamlet, physical objects are rarely used to represent thematic ideas. One important exception is Yorick's skull. Yorick's skull is one important exception which Hamlet discovers in the graveyard. First, he urges the skull to get you to my lady's chamber and tell her, let her paint an inch thick. To this favor she must come. No one can avoid death. He traces the skull's mouth and says, here hung those lips that I have kissed, I know not how oft, indicating his fascination with the physical consequences of death. This later idea is an important motive throughout the play, as Hamlet frequently makes comments referring to every human body's eventual decay, nothing that Polonius will be eaten by worms, that even kings are also eaten by worms, that dust from the decayed body of Alexander the Great might be used to stop a hole in a beer barrel. This is what he says while Prince Hamlet is actually explaining death. And when it comes to Yorick's skull, he says that the same Yorick has been, who is a great jester of the former king, has been decayed. His body has been decayed, and he is going back to his ladies, the Prince Hamlet's lady, that is Ophelia's chamber, where now Ophelia will be getting buried. So this is the symbol and these are the motifs of the play Hamlet. If you like this video, please like, share, and please subscribe to our channel Academic